Hey there, welcome to Science Flixtion. I am Salim Sitterwalla, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Carly names Carl. How's it going, man?
Good evening. How are you doing?
I am excellent. I'm excited. I am all of the
You're
above.
wearing a Bears hat.
I am. I don't know. I couldn't find any other hat. I didn't know where I kept them all. I was cleaning out some stuff the other day and I put my hats in something, and I can't remember where I put it. And this is the only stupid hat I could find, so it'll have to do. I'm wearing a Batman shirt though. We kind of have the same color scheme. I don't know what do you got going on
This
your
is like a
shirt.
little greenish sort of deal
Oh, is it
here.
green?
Yeah,
Maybe I'm colorblind.
it's no, it's the lighting. It's kind of making it is actually green, but the lighting is making it look more blue. But this is one of my favorite characters from My Hero Academia called Suyu Asui. You may also see her as a cameo appearance right there. She's been there this entire time.
Oh, nice.
That's the only actual. Well, it's I own two Funko Pops. I only own this one because I don't like Funko Pops at all. But I own this one because this character does not have a lot of merchandise. So this was one that I picked up, and then I own a. There's a video game called Overwatch, and the character's Diva has like a little mech that she jumps into that they made a Funko Pop of, and it actually looks really good and legit, and it doesn't look goofy like this thing. So that's it. I don't like Funko Pops, so.
Yeah, I never got a Funko Pop. I've been nervous that if I get into it, I'll spend too much money on them. Like I'll keep buying a bunch of them and that I don't need to buy.
Yeah, people. I get surprised when I go to conventions and stuff. I mean, because there's so much. Like one, there's like a million Funko Pops, but then there's such a huge fan base for them. Like when I go
Right,
look
right.
for these toys and all this stuff, I have to go through all the Funko Pop people as well, and I'm just like so surprised. It's like, why would you buy this really cheap, ugly thing when you can have something really nice like these? And there's not that much of a difference in price, but I don't know.
Yeah, I
People
don't
are
know.
probably addicted.
It is funny because I remember when they first came out. This was like a long time ago, but I remember going to I can't remember which convention I went to, but I went and we were looking at random stuff, and they're like, "Oh, these." I'm like, "Hey, what are these? Oh, these are new. They're called Funko Pops." I'm like, oh, "Okay, this seem kind of cheap. These will probably won't last that long." But
Yeah,
apparently, they've become like the uh a certain version of like Beanie Babies or something. They're just
yeah.
like here to stay, and there's so many different things. Originally, I think they were only for um like nerdy things. I feel like they only had them for like Star Wars comic books, but then they started expanding a little bit, and then a
To
lot of like
literally everything on the planet.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
even Funko Pops for Coming to America, where you can get
yeah.
like all of the characters from Coming to America, all Eddie Murphy and everyone. I'm like, I should buy those, but I, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. I guess like getting unique stuff would be fun. Like I know they had one, not to uh get more into Funko Pops. We're not gonna make this show about Funko Pops,
we can
but
talk about Funko Pops all night.
but they have like the Jordan one. They have a Michael
Yeah,
Jordan Funko Pop. I was thinking of getting one of those because it's kind of cool. But anyways, enough of Funko Pops. Let's get on with our show here. We have a lot to talk about and a lot of interesting things that I think that could really set up Phase 4 in general. There's a lot of little tidbits and Easter eggs and clues that we have that will really develop what Phase 4 and even phase going into Phase 5. And who knows when some of these movies and show things will come out. But we'll start off with Spider-Man. No Way
hmm
Home dropped their brand new trailer. They had really exciting stuff. I love the trailer. I was so mad that I had to wait the entire day to watch it, but when I finally saw it, I really loved it. So just in case if anyone hasn't checked it out yet, we'll play the trailer really quick here.
Ever since I got bit by that spider, I've only had 1 week where my life has felt normal. That was when you found out.
watched that spell where you wanted everyone to forget the Peter Parker Spider-Man, we started getting some visitors. From every universe. Hello, Peter. You're not Peter Parker.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
There are others out there. We need to send them back. So, Scooby-Doo this crap.
You know, all this is kind of your mess. I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Please, Scooby-Doo this crap. You're flying out into the darkness to fight ghosts.
What do you mean?
They all die fighting Spider-Man. It's their fate. I'm sorry, kid.
Yeah, me too.
Don't.
Look, there has to be another way!
There isn't. They're a danger to our universe. You're not gonna take this away from me.
Peter, you're struggling to have everything you want while the world tries to make you choose.
This is all my fault. I can't save everyone. What's happening?
They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them. December 17th, exclusively in movie theaters. Tickets on sale November 29th. Spider Monday.
Spider Monday. I will not be buying my tickets November 29th, but I will buy them. I'll probably watch it Thursday night.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't know if I'll buy them that first day. They always have tickets. Like I'll feel like all the time they have these big special days. Get it now, or you won't have tickets, and then movie theaters open up like 5 more theaters for the show. So,
Yeah.
so it works out. It works out anyways. But yeah, so let's get into it. So, what are your thoughts on the trailer?
Good. It's pretty good. There's definitely a lot going on compared to the last trailer. A lot of things that we can finally confirm that the lizard is there. We know he is there. We see hard body the lizard there, and as well as
Giant
Sandman.
tail.
Yeah. We were like, is that a claw swipe before, or is that a we don't? But yeah, he's there. We can definitely see the Sandman. We don't have to worry about deciphering any more posters anymore, or at least that much. And yeah, and in the very least, 4 definitive characters, villains in this movie. Debatable if there's 5 or 6 or more than that, and what else is going on.
A lot. Yeah, they have a bunch of stuff as far as the different villains. I think they had 2 looks like green goblins, if you will. I know we have the one still of the when it's at night. So that's still right there. I think originally I was confused by it. I thought maybe is that Harry Osborn?
Yeah,
But
so I got like a couple theories on this, at least things that it could be, right? So
well, let me just say,
yeah,
so
go ahead.
I think it is just Norman. I think that's what they said, that it's a bad clip. It's just Norman because he gets his original glider gets destroyed or something, and then he gets another one or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So I can go with that. There's a couple things that at least I mean, especially if it's been a long time since anyone's actually watched the old Spider-Man movies. So
Right.
yes, this could totally be Norman, and he just doesn't have a hood on or the mask on, and he's like wearing sunglasses because he does have different tools and gadgets and stuff that were, they'll slice up and like sharp like razors, and they look kind of like this. Um, and they can cut up Spider-Man, and he used those in various movies. So that's theory one, probably the most valid, but also could be Harry Osborn, which, if you don't remember the end of Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi trilogy, the Tobey Maguire trilogy, Harry became Green Goblin, and his
Right.
costume, he didn't have a big helmet or mask or anything like that. Actually, I remember that much. I actually don't remember picture perfect exactly what he looked like, but he had a very still high tech look, but it was more, it was less looking like a goblin, but more looking kind of like this. And then there is the Andrew Garfield uh, Amazing Spider-Man 2. There was also Harry Osborn as Green Goblin, and he also did not have on a big old goblin mask and all of that stuff. And he wore, had all this tech stuff like that. So possibly that Harry Osborn. And then me just kind of like throwing something out there. What if this is none of them? And this is just a trailer shenanigan just to throw us off for thinking, it's assuming that, oh, it's a goblin or it's Norman. What if it's actually an entirely new character, and that it's because right now, again, we're feeling Sinister Six, right? Well, we have Green Goblin, Doc Ock, we have Sandman, we have Electro, and we have the Lizard.
I
So
think I know where you're going with
a
this.
sixth character could actually be Hobgoblin,
Right.
but they change the color because, like, usually his colors are like a orangish type of thing, but they just
Right.
change the color of these gadgets to make them green to throw us off. I think that's just kind of a possibility. I'm not saying it's for sure that, but what if? What if that's actually someone else entirely?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I would be surprised if it was Hobgoblin. I mean, I guess the trailer. I don't know if they would show a brand new character there just randomly like that.
It's
I
like
feel like
3
I don't.
frames. So
Yeah,
yeah.
like I don't know if they would do that because Hobgoblin's a pretty big villain, like in
Mhm.
the Spider Universe, Spideyverse, if you will. Um, so it'd be kind of like random that they have him because they've never introduced him in any of the Spider-Man movies or even mentioned and talked about him in any sort of way. Um, so that would be interesting if they went there. I think I'm just gonna assume that it is um, Norman Osborn, and like I said, he probably uses like Stark technology, steals something from Stark, and rebuilds his glider. If you, I forgot to have the picture frame, but it looks like Otto does the same thing too because his like tentacles, they look very much like Iron Man,
Mhm.
like built, like in that in the clip when he's grabbing Peter, he's like, "You're not Peter." And like those the his tentacles look like very much like they could be nanotech or something like
Mhm.
that he
So like
used to
what's
kind of
happening
upgrade.
there is actually, because you see he's holding Spider-Man against that wall. He's actually
Right.
stealing the nanites from his costume and
Oh,
assimilating
okay.
him into his arms at that
I didn't know. I
moment.
missed that. I missed that. Yeah. So it
So
could.
yeah, right there. So he's actually taking it right off of them because this suit right here, I was gonna say, Spider-Man has like 1,000 suits in this movie.
Right.
This is
Right.
the Infinity War suit that Iron Man gave him. So Doc Ock is actually taking the nanites in that suit right off of him and
Right.
upgrading his own arms. And then eventually we see like the black suit with the gold trim. We see the advanced suit, which is the suit he had at the end of Far From Home. We
Right.
also see another kind of suit that looks kind of like this, but has gold instead of a golden spider instead of a blue one. That's later in the movie. And then I think there's another suit after that. There's like 1,000 suits, but for sure, he's actually stealing those nanites, so he won't be having that suit going forward, I guess. But he'll have I think it's called the integrated suit, is the one with the golden spider on there. There's like a million
Yeah.
toys already about this stuff, but yeah,
Right.
he's
Right.
definitely stealing some tech there.
Right. So that's an interesting part to think about. It could just be like that, where Norman Osborn does the same thing. Obviously, both are scientists, so they know how to build their own stuff because that's what they've done. That's how they've gotten these things, because they built them themselves. So, but yeah. So moving on to the next part of this trailer, where we look at the end. There's like a still frame where it looks like Tom Holland's Spider-Man is going and fighting three of the other villains that we haven't talked about yet. Electro, we mentioned the Lizard, and then the Sandman. By the way, Electro looks badass. He
Much
looks
better.
he looks like what he should look like, at least. Like,
Well,
obviously
better.
not as
Better.
better. I think
Yeah.
it's good, because otherwise, if you make him look like the comic book, he'll look too cartoony to me. So I think he looks good, especially when you look at there's a still frame of him again where his head kind of shapes out like, in the comic, where with the mask that he wears,
Mhm.
with the bolts showing, like, kind of forming that, star bolts on top and the sides. So I think it looks cool. I like the way he looks in here. But anyways, where I'm getting at with this still is supposedly that Sony edited out Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, because that's what this still is supposed to be. The three of them are going up against these three guys. They're attacking them. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think there's some funny angles of approach, especially like the lizard down there in Electro. I mean, just like Spider-Man is directly in the middle right there, like 100% middle, but then the other ones are just a little off. They don't necessarily look like they're lunging at him directly. So yeah, maybe, like, I would say maybe Tobey Maguire's at the bottom and um, Andrew Garfield's at the top. That would be my guess. But yeah, it's certainly a possibility. There could be even more villains in this shot too. Because I mean, if we go back again, Doc Ock is in this movie, and Green
Right.
Goblin is in this movie. Where are they at now? Like,
Yeah. Right.
certainly, there's that. There's also that part where that Goblin Bomb is being thrown, and Peter's like diving at it. So that definitely screams like a one-on-one confrontation where there's probably something really personal going on between Green Goblin and Tom Holland or Spider-Man, or maybe even Andrew or Tobey Maguire, and so on. But who knows what exactly going to happen? Because the whole thing is like. Doctor Strange said, "Hey, when you mess up that spell, all of these people started coming through." And the idea is that, okay, Peter said, we'll fix this, but they're pissed at you because they died in facing Spider-Man before in these alternate realities, and this Peter doesn't want to kill them. All right, he doesn't want to send them back to their grave, or he doesn't want to kill them now. So that's him dealing with all of these villains at the end of the movie, because they all know that if they go back, they're going to die. So they're fighting Spider-Man so that they don't die.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's that true to the character who Spider-Man is. He doesn't want anyone to die. Like, even if you're the biggest villain in the whole world, he still wants you to live. He does not gonna, that's his oath. That's his moral compass. So yeah, I think, like I said, I think more than likely, I'll still be surprised if Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are not in this movie. I don't know when they'll show up. I don't know if they're supposed to be only in like half the movie or the last like 30 minutes. Like when he's I don't know when that scene exactly is, when they're on the top of, it looks like, the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, like, I can't hold them back anymore. I don't know if that's supposed to be like the end, in the
Right, yeah.
middle. Who
Yeah.
knows when that scene is, and maybe that's when they come through. But I'll be surprised, like I said, if those guys are not in it. It wouldn't make sense. And the other thing I was thinking, I think maybe Mysterio isn't dead yet, and he'll be the sixth, because I know Sony eventually wants to do the Sinister Six. So I think those guys will be the six characters. I did want to add something. I remember back when, not related to this, kind of related to this movie, but going back to talk about the post-credit scene in Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. So I remember when I said that he, Venom, like when he licked the screen, he's like, that guy. So here's my theory when I'm connecting to this. Like, so all these other universes, Spider-Man villains are coming through, right? They all exist. So that means that Venom does exist. And I remember he says in the end of in that post-credit scene, the hive mind, I have memory, I know memories, I have information from symbiotes all across different universes. So that's how he knows Spider-Man. He doesn't know Tom Holland. He just sees the Spider-Man symbol. And he's like, that guy, because there's another symbiote in another universe that fought a Spider-Man looking guy too. So that's how he knows him. That's my theory. That's dead on. That is dead on. Like there's no like, I don't know, man. That's dead on. You're not taking this from me, Carl.
I don't want to, but I mean, we have to add to the conversation.
That's logical. That's logical. That's completely logical to me.
Well, the thing is, like that would work if he would, if the symbiotes are not only communicating through alternate realities, but also time. Because if time is linear and like everything's happening at the same time, then they wouldn't know. Like Spider-Man's happening at the same time in each universe, like unless there was past Spider-Man or something like that.
Well, I take it as like it's just all the information collected from every, even if the symbiotes are dead, like that information still is kept. Like you learn it as the other symbiotes learn it, and then it's just like everyone does. It's all just information that stays gathers, and they all can channel that information whenever they want.
Yeah, what I mean is like if Spider-Man existed in 2000 and then the symbiotes also existed in 2000, then how would, like, if in an alternate reality they would be able to tell the other symbiotes about it if it's happening at the same time? So all of them is what I mean. Sort of deal.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
I just think that makes a lot of sense, because I feel like that end wasn't like like I said, when in Carnage, the post credit scene, Venom, like Maximum Carnage post credit scene, like it's not just a random throwaway line. Like he definitely knows him somehow. Like something about him like made him like, I know this thing, this character, this person, or whatever. So that was interesting to me. But anyways, like I said, I think I'm very excited about this movie. I'm like chomping at the bits to watch this, because Spider-Man is my all-time favorite character. He is like, he's just the best. Like he's the first comic book I started reading, and then obviously I started branching out to other stuff. But he's like, to me, he's very much like that, like the real, like as real as you can get as a superhero. Like obviously there's spider powers, so that's not real, but like he goes through like the regular, he goes through he goes through like your everyday struggles, right? Like the you and me struggles, like paying bills, like the obligation, the moral dilemmas that he has, like every day he faces. But that's what, like, I always felt like, man, he's like the most like normal superhero there is, in my opinion. But anyways,
just a quick tangent.
oh, sure, go ahead.
Speaking about Spider-Man being real, a long time ago. This is probably before the Tobey Maguire or the Andrew Garfield movies, or maybe right around the time. The History Channel had I believe it was a 4-part series on could someone actually be Spider-Man in real life? Like, is it realistic for someone to actually gain Spider-Man's powers? And they went through and analyzed every single ability that Spider-Man has, how it how it is in comic books and how it was in the Sam Raimi trilogy, and whether or not it was actually realistic for someone to be able to do those things through a spider bite or all of that. And I'm not gonna, again, it was like a 4-part series. It was on History Channel, and I believe it's on YouTube. So if you have not seen it before, give it a shot, take a look. It was actually super fun because I'm a nerd and I like science and stuff. Boom, we got it right there. So they explored both sides of it, radioactive spider bite versus how it was, because that's the comics. And then in the Sam Raimi movies, it was a genetically enhanced modified spider. So there's two different things. So, like, long story short on that part, a radioactive spider bite, they can't hold enough radiation to even affect you at all because they're so small. It just wouldn't work. But a genetically modified spider is possible. Will it transfer you powers? You should watch the whole rest of the thing for it. But it's super cool. Like, I was just nerding out watching that whole thing, and I'd love to watch it again.
Yeah, I'll watch that. I never heard of that, so I'm definitely gonna check that out. So that's interesting.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we'll move on now to our part 2 of our show. Is we both watch the Eternals. We have thoughts on the Eternals, and there's a lot of things that happen in this movie that I think is going to be really important for the next phase or this phase and the beyond for what MCU wants to do. So just to start out, what was your thoughts on the movie in general, just as like a critical review?
Just in general, just a real quick. My favorite character is Makari. I absolutely love her. She was amazing. She's the deaf one, the speedster. She was just really cool, like just super cool. Overall, the group itself I thought was just okay. I wasn't super into them, nor was I against them, and I wasn't super into the movie, nor was I against it. But the ending was really awesome, but we'll get to that later. Overall, the movie was a little slow paced. Had a lot of really great shots. I would have loved to have seen this movie in IMAX, especially looking at Erisham and Tiamat and all of the other stuff going on. It would have been spectacular in an IMAX, but it wouldn't make the movie better, just make it visually better. Overall, the acting I thought was pretty decent. The plot was okay. And there's a lot of things that I think could have been better, could have been more interesting, and so on. But yeah, it's just an okay movie, maybe like a 2.5 out of 5. I guess that's a 5 out of 10 or something like that. I just don't feel it's the worst Marvel movie, because I have heard that from a lot of people, but it's definitely not the best. I would say that.
Yeah, I'm not far off from you. I liked it, but like I would give it like a 3. I thought it certainly not as, like I said, not as bad as a lot of people are saying. A lot of critics said it was. I thought it was generally different than the normal MCU movies have been. A little darker and maybe a little edgier than your normal MCU movie, I think. Especially when you're talking about like an origin movie. Most of them have been pretty like light in a sense. This was a little more, darker, and they went beyond your normal like Disney MCU stuff. So, that I like that. I thought I think this movie obviously is going to be very integral to a lot of the next, like I've been saying, the next phases. I think the one criticism I would have about this movie is like there's like 10 Eternals in here, right? it's kind of like
Hmm.
the issue I guess I would have is the show 8 in this still. I mean, there's
Yeah,
like
and then there's Druid and
and
because he's
then
not in that picture,
right.
and then yeah,
But I guess the only criticism I was like, it's hard to develop characters when you have so many things going on, and they were trying to show the personalities of each character, but it seemed forced at times. And um, I personally thought the whole like uh, I thought part of like the whole Kingo thing when he's doing like the whole Bollywood
the whole
stuff was
Bollywood
kind
stuff.
I thought it was kind of cringy in my opinion, but
Really, I
that's
thought it was fun. Yeah.
I thought it was okay. I just thought I was like, yeah, okay, it's fine. But
Hmm.
I mean, I appreciate that, him bringing the
Did you like
culture.
his like whole family lineage thing where he's like,
Yeah, well, that's
because
the character in the comics. That's what, like, obviously they do Bollywood here, but in the comics he's an actor, and then like they show in the comics they show like he's had the lineage. It's always him, but he pretends like this is my great grandfather, great great grandfather, or whatever. So yeah, that was funny. That was pretty cool. Um, yeah. So those are my general thoughts on the movie. I thought it was solid, and I think, like I said, I liked a lot of the stuff that this sets up for the future movies. And let's get into that. So there's going to be spoiler alert here. We're going to talk about the ending of the movie and the two post credit scenes that are very important. And like I said, setting up what happens, especially the ending is also important on setting up what happens. So the first with Tiamat, who's been permanently changed, the landscape of Earth. They froze him, um, and that's he's just gonna be there. And they talked about like they had it on news. There's these things happened, and this guy's just there, and obviously that's implications because he's supposed to like we find out like Celestial is supposed to be born, and then obviously that planet dies, but then that Celestial goes on to create other world and life. Um,
hmm.
what have you learned about like this part in his character? And because I know you were pretty intrigued about this aspect overall.
In general, this is just I love this imagery. In general, just it's beautiful to me. Just seeing all of that celestial just coming out of Earth and it's like rock solid, but it's a permanent change to Earth. Like it's there. You go to the Indian Ocean and you're going to see Tiamat's face and hand coming out of the Earth. And you could probably, I'm 100% sure you can see that from space. I mean, this picture is practically from space. And I feel like there's even so much more that's gonna like there's no way you can just brush this aside in the future movies that whether they're Eternals or not. Like the next Marvel movie, Avengers movie, or something like it has to be addressed. Where were the Avengers when Tiamat's face was coming out of the Earth? Like they have to say something in regards to that. Where were the Avengers when our planet nearly cracked in half and all 7 billion people almost died and so on? And just even then, like that's the funny thing about it is we not we but they were about to have the celestial come out of the ground and destroy the Earth if it wasn't for Thanos, who snapped and killed half of the population, because that delayed this by what I believe they said it was like a week. So I don't think the visuals of the movie line up for that perfectly, because like you can see everything is recovered, everyone's back at their jobs, and if you watch Endgame, Earth is like post-apocalyptic and just
Right.
nasty, right? And then everyone comes back. I don't think they can clean up Earth in a week and everything is just running smoothly again. So the way that part is shot in the movie just doesn't really line up. But regardless, he still delayed it by snapping half of the population. And once they came back, then population boomed and we Tiamat is able to start coming out. But there has to be some sort of way that is addressed by the rest of the Marvel universe outside of the Eternals, and I think that's going to be interesting going forward. Also, the potential, because you think about like Nowhere, which is the head of a dead Celestial,
Right.
that they converted in. It's not just a bar, but like they mined it for resources and stuff. We have a Celestial coming out of the ground now, and it'd be crazy to think that humans wouldn't try to mess with it and to try to, get some rock out of it or try to dig into it and see if they can't get some resources out of it or turn it into a theme park or something like that. Like they're going to be some greedy person trying to make money off of this.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, aren't the Avengers dismantled essentially? I know, like
They're
Endgame,
not really. I mean, if you think about like
I guess the Endgame was.
Shang-Chi, yeah, like in game,
Oh, sorry.
they're not like they don't have the facility anymore, but they still are in communication with each other.
That's
Like
true.
Shang-Chi, at the end of that, we had Captain Marvel and Hulk talking with Wong and Shang-Chi. Like they're
That's true.
still, communicating. They still have facilities, and even which we'll get to later, the teaser with She-Hulk. Hulk has his own facility, and it's not Avengers related.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I always say like, I guess you can argue that for all the movies. Like, where is all these other characters when in the Thor Dark World, London's like falling apart?
Mhm.
I mean, you can make that argument. Like, the thing that I always say, like even in the comics, it's like they all have their own battles that they're going through. So that's why they can't be at every spot because
True, right.
it's like there's always chaos happening all over the world. So, and each character is going through their own thing. That's why when they talk about, when Thor was not with them in which part, which one was it? He was not in Civil War.
Mhm.
So he's off somewhere because of the visions that he had in Ultron. And he's going on doing his thing, and then that's why they show in Thor 3, like he was trying to collect, to end, not to make sure Ragnarok doesn't happen or whatever. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's just something like that. It's just like, they were probably just having their own conflicts that they were taking care of, and that's why they didn't intervene here.
True. Well, which it's not so much that they needed to intervene, because even in those situations, if it's like a flash in the pot, how could they get there? But it was already taken care of, right? These guys handle it. Okay, we found that out afterward. But this is a case where, yes, it was taken care of by the Eternals. Not that they knew that or know who the Eternals are. That's a whole nother thing. They don't even know them. But
Right.
secondly,
They don't know what
there's
Celestials are either.
they don't know anything about Celestials, and this thing is stuck coming out of planet Earth. And if they
Right.
hadn't, like, if it had gone any further, like, technically, like, really, that's more than enough to crack the planet open. If you really look at the size of a Celestial, and that much of his head and hand are coming out of Earth,
Right.
that's plenty enough. Like, we're just go ahead and say that it didn't happen, but for what it's worth, it's still something that is a permanent change to the landscape of Earth. Why didn't you guys stop this? And who stopped this? And why weren't you guys there and put it back? Like, that's like, we can't
Right.
do anything with this, or unless somebody, like I said, is going to try to come along and try to make money off of it.
Right. So in the end, we do see, obviously that's the end result. They were able to stop it, and then Icarus supposedly kills himself going to the sun. It's like obviously the play on the myth of Icarus, the Greek mythology,
Mhm.
because they talk about that in the movie where Sprite makes up that story about Icarus based off of him.
Mhm.
Do you think he's actually dead? I don't think he's dead. I feel like he's probably just.
I think he's dead, but at the same time, the whole thing is that they have their memories that memory wall. I forget the name of what it was called, but
Right,
all
right,
of the memories are downloaded. And we haven't actually said it that these Eternals are very different from the comic version. That they're
right,
essentially robots. So
right.
um, they can easily like Arishem. Like I wouldn't say easily because I don't think they actually. Well, I don't think they actually said that they would get new bodies, but I would assume that they would. But I think they implied that if, like, say Tiamat actually came out and destroyed planet Earth, the Eternals would either be destroyed and get their bodies and their memories, uploaded and get new bodies and then start that process again, or that it would be a kind of situation like the hive mind that they had or whatever, but the celestial would protect them, everyone else get destroyed, and then they move on with the celestial, and then until they get their other assignments, something of that matter. Either way, it's still possible for um, I can't even think of his name. What's his name
Icarus.
again? Icarus to come back. Um, but I had kind of read somewhere that Ajak, the leader, Selma Hayek, that she doesn't have that ability to come back and that she is not going to. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but um, I was telling my mother going into the movie that I'd be surprised if Selma Hayek and Angelina Jolie actually do multiple movies because they're a little high profile, and I highly doubt that they will want to do multiple Marvel movies. But I guess if that's the case for Ajak, then yeah, she's not coming back. But Thena's still alive, and she's still presumably will be in the next Eternals movies.
Right, right. She's because obviously she's in the post-credit scene.
Hmm.
But the ending was very interesting. Obviously, so Arishem, we've mentioned his name multiple times, um, and like kind of a background to who he is in the comics. So Arishem is the leader of all four celestial hosts. He's kind of in charge of. He's known as Arishem, aka Arishem the Judge. So he's in charge of judging like the worthiness of civilizations, the destinations uh, so they show him after the fact that they stop Tiamat from um the emergence. Essentially they stop the emergence, so they come back and like you see Cersei frozen as Dane Whitman is about to tell her something. She's frozen, and then all of a sudden you see all the three Eternals that were left on Earth, the ones that didn't go off to warn the other Eternals, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Um, they're all kind of gathered up together, and he says, based off your memories, I'm going to judge to see if the humans should be saved. And I'm just assuming he takes them to like the World Forge, where they're and that's like their home or whatever. Where I think that's Home Forge is World Forge is that memory. That's the thing. That's what the memory place is called.
Maybe, yeah.
If I'm correct or not. Um, but yeah, so I think he probably takes them back there, and then he's going to study their memories, and probably at that point, and I'm wondering if that's going to be like their Avengers like end game type of thing, where it's going to be built up to that, and then in the end, it's going to be like the Celestials coming back, and they're going to try to destroy Earth, and then obviously they have to stop them. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like how you saw that happening, and in general, how what are you thinking that it entails, or like what hints it could have provided us?
So my working theory, of course, working is still is that so he's planting all these seeds to create more Celestials. Why? Why does he need? Why is there a need for more Celestials? There has to be a reason because I mean they're as powerful as they are. It's not like they need to. It's not that they need to procreate, and it's not that they're actually creating life, because if they were, then they wouldn't be putting more celestials to destroy life, sacrificing the humans or whatever intelligent life there is on whatever planet it is. That the whole purpose is to make more celestials. So they're building up an army, or building up their ranks, I should say, building up their numbers, but for what? And I wonder if there is some sort of threat out there that they feel that they need to have more celestials for, to fight against. So that could be a number of things, like the aspirants, which is they're celestial like beings. They're very much the opposite of celestials, but they're pretty much the same thing. Kind of a deep dive to go into on a quick tangent right here, but they just basically are in conflict with aspirants, so it could be that. I was also thinking the possibility of Galactus, and I don't 100% know if Galactus is at the same level, higher or lower than Celestials, but he's definitely capable of many great things and is incredibly powerful and can pretty much do whatever he wants. And he operates specifically to consume planets as his role, which limits the amount of celestials, because if he were to consume a planet and there was celestial energies on the inside, he would consume that, so there wouldn't be more celestials being made. So he's kind of an enemy in that regard, but he's fulfilling a specific role. So it's not like when people think of Galactus as a villain, he's not actually a villain. He's just fulfilling his role. But I think that is a possibility that Galactus is involved in this, or the aspirants, or maybe something else entirely. But I think this could be like you said, like an in-game Infinity War sort of thing, where they're building up to a big fight with a lot of cosmic powers, a lot of cosmic beings at the end.
Right. Yeah, that's what they're looking like to do in these phases, to get to that point where it's going to be focused on the cosmos a lot more. So that's going to be interesting. One thing I do want to mention that's important for the futures of, like, especially when we were talking about mutants.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing with the introduction of Celestials in the comics, when the Celestials first come here, they do three things. They create Eternals, they create Deviants, and then they add the X-Men mutant X gene into humans. So what basically, remember in WandaVision when we were talking about that, and I was like, you know what? I think they were hinting towards Wanda being a mutant, because when she's a child, she somehow stops the nuke from going off, the Stark nuke from going off with her powers. And they always kind of hinted, well, she always had these powers. The powers weren't given to her by Hydra. She always had them. And that's why she was able to withstand the Infinity Stone and all these different things. So I think basically the Celestials, what MCU is going to do, because it makes sense. And in the comics, the mutant genes is given by Celestials, and that's one of the ways you can just be like, look, these mutants are always here. They're part of this universe. They're originally, maybe we thought, when they start doing, like, especially in Spider-Man, when they were showing all these universes opening up, and that's how mutants are going to come, but they're not. Mutants exist within MCU already, and they've existed since 7,000 years, when Celestials put Deviants or not 7,000 years, like however old Earth is, when they put Deviants on Earth, and then when humans came, and then when Eternals came, they put the mutant gene within humans, and I think that's what they'll show eventually, in my opinion.
I hope so.
I think so. That makes sense, because, like I said, obviously MCU does, do their own thing. A lot of the times they don't go exactly by the comics. And like you said, the Eternals in the movie are different from the Eternals in the comics. So the Eternals in the comics are not they're human, but they're just humans with extraordinary powers. Like, they've been given extraordinary powers by the Celestials. but obviously in here they show them being more like android humanoid things. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But I think that's what essentially is this. The mutant X gene was given to humans when the Eternals and the Deviants and Celestials came to Earth by the Celestials. So that's my theory on that. But we'll move on to the first post-credit scene that shows Makari, Druig, and Thena as they're searching for the other Eternals. Like they show them leaving to find other Eternals to warn them, like, hey, you're being tricked, you're being set up. You know, your mission isn't what you think it is. That's what they're trying to do. And obviously, they get to a point where it's like, we're not finding any Eternals. Like everyone's missing. What's going on? And then that's when we see Eros is introduced, and he tells them that he can help get back the other three Eternals that were taken by Erisham. So let's talk about Eros and what the implication is for that. Obviously, Eros is. It's funny. I think it's funny they got Harry Styles for him because it kind of fitting. I think.
Yeah, I think it works so much. Like in the very least, he has the exact same jawline as
Jawline, and just like just like the whole Harry Styles, like he's like a ladies man, and he's very carefree person, like who he is, like as his persona, his real life persona. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like we're getting Robert. I mean, obviously Robert Downey Jr. Made Tony Stark a little bit more the arrogant and things like that than he was in the comics, but it's kind of like when you cast a character, I think he's gonna nail Eros, in my opinion. I think it's Star Fox. So let's talk about Eros. Like, what do you know of him from the comics, just so people have a kind of a background on him?
Honestly, I've never read a single comic book with Eros in it, but I know one thing that he is infamous for, as we kind of talked about just a second ago, is that he's I wouldn't call him a ladies' man, but that's his power. Is that he has and I could be speaking his exact power, but he has the ability to seduce women or possibly anyone. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he does abuse that ability.
Oh, does he? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is not.
I didn't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, that's why I'm surprised that they're even using him. And I wonder if they're actually going to change his powers around a little bit, because there's like, say, for example, Hank Pym. Like, one of the reasons, at least personally, why I think that they aren't making Hank Pym a big character, like he wasn't an original Avenger or anything like that, is because of his troubled comic book history, where he physically, like, he slapped the Wasp. Like, he has anger issues, and he physically assaulted the Wasp, and that's one of his character things in his character's history that he's never been ever to get rid of, or people ever to let go of. So I think they didn't make him a big deal, and they put Scott Lang in that role because of that. Because Hank Pym is definitely a founding member of the Avengers and should have been on the Avengers team with Wasp and so on, but I think they skipped over it for that reason. That's just my personal theory. With Eros, he's had this with again, not physically, but I don't want to say the words, but they sound like ape, with female superheroes and other people in the Marvel universe, and it's not been a positive thing that people remember him of. It's like, that's the notable thing for Eros, is that, and he has slept with, I think he slept with, like, She-Hulk and some other and I don't know if that was consensual or not, but that's his power, right? He makes women want him. So I think they probably should change those powers around just a bit, just to rework it and make it a little bit more, because the last thing you want is to sell toys to kids for somebody like that. So I think they would probably change that around.
Right. So I was looking at his abilities. I didn't know like he. I know who he is. Like I've heard of him. I know he's Thanos' brother.
Yeah.
He's not like Thanos. Like he's not power hungry. He's not
No.
like a like wants a. In the comics, Thanos is very power hungry. He wants to take over worlds and stuff like that. He's Eros is the opposite of that. They show him like supposedly as a carefree person that just wants a party and have fun type of character. His abilities are like I can see them getting rid of that part of it, like this because he does have superhuman strength, agility, durability, longevity. I guess durability and longevity could go hand in hand, but he can fly, and I know he does have psychic ability, but I didn't know it was like he uses that psychic ability to control women to do things, so forth. So I'm imagining instead of the psychic ability to maybe just have him. They picked a guy like Harry Styles because Harry Styles just like naturally charismatic person. So like let's just get that. So instead of making him psychic, we'll make him just a charismatic person. That's how he gets women because he's
Right,
charismatic.
yeah, it makes more sense that way.
Yeah,
And then that way it
so
won't be necessarily abused, and you don't have to force yourself into that kind of thing, like with any character, because that could be really problematic for that. Like if anybody hates the Marvel universe and they want it all to end, and this would be the way if they
right.
went ahead and made it
Well,
true to
right.
comic books, which would be really poor.
Right, and that's why MCU went away from Mandarin.
Right.
Because it's a very racist character. That's just factual.
Mhm.
It's a racist character in the comic book, so that's why they changed it. And they kind of obviously they talk about it, in the movie. They address the racism, like they had me portrayed, even called me the Mandarin, like like kind of like mocking, not mocking it, but like kind of saying, yeah, that's bad,
Mhm.
because it is. So that's MCU definitely. I think they're more cognizant of these things, so they definitely don't stay. That's why a lot of times they don't stay too true to the comic books because a lot of these comics were written in really like old times where just the people didn't have the not to excuse the timing. I just like people
Right.
just had bad and like didn't have the proper intentions of when they were writing these characters. But yeah, so that's Heroes, and then they do have Pip, the troll that's played by Patton Oswalt. Um, so he first gets introduced in Strange Tales, Volume 2, I think issue number 179 in the comics as a foil to Adam Warlock. So I wonder if there'll be relations with that as related to that as well in MCU, because I know where Adam Warlock is going to be in Guardians 2. Sorry, not Guardians 2, Guardians 3. He was teased in end of Guardians 2. And he basically he became in the comics he became like physically and psychologically mutated into like this morally degenerate, stunted, like satire form known as a troll. So that's how he becomes like. That's not how he never looked like that originally. I don't know. I didn't know a lot about him. But I know like he looked different in the beginning. So, but yeah, the reason he turns into that is like I think he drinks some kind of like um hallucinogenic ale that kind of mutates him into looking like that. So yeah, he's a funny character. I think that it's an interesting because he's obviously he's connected to Eros. He's like his little um what do you call that? He's
Chester type of thing.
yeah, he's kind of like the um
Because he's really he's just a joke character for what it's
yeah.
worth. Like it's not like he's gonna have major plot development or do anything significant. I mean, maybe he'll have a significant role like Howard the Duck or something like that, where he does something to help out, but he won't be any sort of pivotal thing like that. I mean, like I just think it's funny that Patton Oswalt is. Now he already is a character technically multiple characters and Agents of Shield,
Right.
which whether or not you think that's canon to MCU or not, I mean, you can call it another timeline, but he's already on that show or was on that show, and now he's also voicing MODOK in the current
Right.
MODOK animated series, and now he's Pip the Troll. So he's just getting around in Marvel, and I don't mind it at all. I think it's pretty cool. I was just again like I think most people associate Pip the Troll, which personally, again like with Adam Warlock and stuff like that, but just reading the Infinity Gauntlet storyline and all of those sorts of stories where he just pops around and he's in and out. Again, he's very much a joke character, nothing to take terribly serious.
Right, yeah. So he's gonna be kind of like probably like this, yeah, the sidekick to Eros. That's how he introduced him. So he does have possesses a space gem. So that essentially he gives access to like immense amount of powers, but he doesn't really use those powers. All he does is to transport and to teleport himself, and he can only do teleportation if he to a place that he's knows. Like I think that he's been there. I think, to my knowledge, so that's why he knows of probably the what's his spaceship called again in the Eternal spaceship? Remember? But it's that triangle like thing. I forget what the name of it is.
Forget the name.
But yeah, that's why I'm assuming he's been there. That's why because he teleports himself and Eros into that spaceship. That's how we introduce him. So obviously getting into that scene, he's that's how they introduce him. So it'll be interesting. I'm assuming that's going to be maybe the plot for the second movie, I guess, where they talk about or where they go to find where Cersei's Faustus and Fastos and Kingo have been taken to. So that's going to be interesting as far as what they'll do with that, because I wonder if you have to wonder if they teased them there. Will they bring them back for something else? Obviously, Guardians potentially they could be teased or put into in the Guardians movie, maybe. So that'll be interesting as far as what they do with those. And then finally we'll move into the last part of this Eternals conversation. What Dane Whitman is about to, like I said, touch the last post-credit scenes. I think I was like, to my knowledge, looks like he didn't actually touch the ebony blade. Like it's that sword. He was about to touch it, and then he turns into which the blade is what he was about to tell his like Cersei his family secret, and his family secret is basically that he's a descendant of many people who are the character called the Black Knight, and essentially the ebony blade, Excalibur, the different weapons. Like I think the ebony blades are what turns him into a Black Knight, or maybe at least in the MCU, that's what they'll show. And then as he's about to touch it, you hear a voice saying, "Are you sure you are ready to do that, Mr. Whitman?" or something like that. Your thoughts? You had found something out about who that voice was. If you want to get into that part.
Yeah, actually, I have a funny story. So I saw this movie a couple weeks ago. I think I saw it on opening night, and everyone was watching at the theater, and for the most part, it was just a pretty chill viewing. Of the theater wasn't incredibly full; it was decent, and we watched the movie all the way through. Then the post-credit scenes come through, the first one, and all of a sudden, when you see Pip the Troll, right? You see Pip first come in, and I was like, "Oh, it's Pip," or whatever. That's cool. Pip is here, but I'm saying it to myself. And then Harry Styles walks in, and then all I hear is Star Fox. And then everyone in the theater turns around and looks at this guy. He's like all the way in the back, yelling out, "That's Star Fox! That's Thanos' brother!" And me, I'm like laser focused in because I don't like I don't like joining in on stuff like that because like I know
Right.
someone's being annoying, so I'm just gonna sit here and just try to focus him out. So he's just yelling his ear, or everyone's ears off in the background, and everyone's turning their heads to that. So the first credits scene goes through, and I'm like, okay, I'm thinking everything through, just like processing it all. Second sequence comes through, the ebony blade, and he's about to touch it. Oh, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you're ready for that? And then dude yells out, that's what did he say? Oh, he said, that's the Watcher. And I'm like, man, how many times are you gonna be yelling out stuff? It's like, that's the Watcher. Oh my god, the Watcher. And I'm like, okay, So everyone gets out. No one else says anything, but everyone whips their head to look at this guy. And I'm walking out of the theater. I'm like, so that's the Watcher. Yeah, they did say that there was going to be what if characters crossing over into the MCU. That would be, makes sense that the Watcher would be the first one, right? Like, okay, that's cool. And it did sound a whole lot like Jeffrey Wright. So, like, okay, that makes sense. And then when I get into the car and I start the engine, I'm like, I don't know, man. That doesn't. Why would the Watcher tell Dane Whitman to not touch the sword? Like, I get it, but like, I get it because it's a big deal and it's a heavy burden and stuff like that. But why would the MCU choose Dane Whitman touching the sword to be the first time to introduce the Watcher officially? Like, he's not that big deal of a character. Like, if I was going to have the Watcher show up, I'd have him show up with Iron Man or with Captain America or have him talk to Doctor Strange or even Spider-Man. Why would it be Black Knight be the first person? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
Right.
I think that is not correct. So I didn't even want to do this, but when I got home that night, I went home and started Googling whose voice was that? Because I know somebody would, the internet would have figured it out by now, even though it was literally the opening night, and confirmed Chloe Zhao, the director of Eternals, confirmed that was the voice of Mahershala Ali. The character he's playing is Blade, so that it was a teaser for Blade. So that was Blade in that room with Dane Whitman telling him, are you sure you want to touch that sword right there? So that, I was like, that makes a little bit more sense than the Watcher, in the very, very least. Like, I'm glad it's actually not the Watcher. Now, why it's Blade, that's a whole nother thing. And whether or not it's fully justified for it to be Blade or if it makes sense. I mean, it's the MCU, they can do whatever they want with telling stories. But I think it's good. I mean, we're gonna get this Blade movie within the next few years. What they possibly might do with the Blade movie is expand on Black Knight there, or I don't know. What do you think is gonna happen in with this potential teaser crossover between these two characters?
I think Blade is going to be introduced well before the movie, like before his solo movie, like the kind of similar to the way they introduced Black Panther into another main. Like, I don't know if it's going to be in one of these Disney Plus shows, because I know Disney Plus, and we're gonna get into the slate of shows shortly here. But I know Disney Plus is really trying to make their shows very important, and it's going to be very much it is part of MCU, the whole universe, and what happens in the shows is important for the rest of the phases. It's part of it's all connected to the movies and and in general. So the shows are part of Phase 4, so, or Phase 5, if you will, whenever they come out. So I think he's going to be introduced before that. I know in the comics, I didn't know this before. I was just trying to find more information on, because I know I've heard of Black Knight, because I know he was on the Avengers. I didn't know a lot in depth about him. Um, and I think so. Not to backtrack here, but when he talks about his uncle, like he's estranged with his uncle. His uncle is actually the Black Knight 2, who's a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he goes there to obviously talk to his uncle. And I'm assuming at that point, is in the comics, supposedly he Dane Whitman goes to his uncle Nathan Garrett, who's been wounded in a battle with Iron Man, I believe, and I don't know, is like mortally wounded or whatever. But basically, he confesses like, I was this. We have this family history. I need you to take on this mantle and redeem the bad stuff I've done. So then he eventually then becomes the Black Knight. I'm a little confused. So like I don't know if I'm not 100% certain if the Ebony Blade gives him the powers or it's just something passed on in general.
It's,
like
it's
if
the
you
Ebony
want,
Blade, yeah.
is it okay? Because I don't know if it was something like if you die, then you automatically, because it's like it's kind of like a curse, if you will, passed on to generation to generation to generation. So if the one person dies, I think automatically then Dane Whitman becomes the Black Knight, if you will, or gets those whatever transferred to him. But yeah, so basically Dane Whitman also has connection, or the Black Knight has connection to this organization called the MI13. It's like a British like Avengers, maybe, if you will, like a team. And Blade is part of that team. So maybe there's some connection there. They're going to, I don't know if they're going to show up and I think they're going to probably show up in one of these shows that we're going to talk about. But I think he's going to appear well before his movie comes out, because there's just no way they tease him right now and then make us wait 3 years before they show him again or something like that. So I definitely think he's going to appear. I think it's going to be similar to, like I said, T'Challa, where he appeared in Civil War, like 2 years before his solo movie. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure either way, but like it's just those two characters crossing over is more interesting, because I've never read Black Knight or even Blade comics for what it's worth, but I have a working knowledge of Blade more than I do of Black Knight, at least. But in the very least, Blade hunts vampires. Black Knight doesn't, maybe.
No,
but
he uses like the swords and stuff that he uses, mystical swords. Blade, like, because Blade is supposed to be like the dark mystic side of Marvel.
Right, like they can associate with each other is what I'm trying to say. It's not that they have this big, huge history between Midnight Suns, which is another team of which they could be building to as well, especially with, again, Moon Knight's coming, and then Blade, and I don't know if Morbius is really going to be involved in that sort of thing, but Doctor Strange and Black Knight, and other future characters that will be associated. Ghost Rider, I know that name's been tossed around a bit lately, the last couple of years, but nothing official. And other characters that could be on the dark mystic side of things. And then the very least, also there's Marvel Zombies too. So there's that's not, again, we're getting into the part where not only we're getting very cosmic with Phase 4, but we're also getting more mystic, and with Blade, Marvel Zombies, the Ebony Blade, Black Knight, and Moon Knight, and all those sorts of things. Werewolf by Night, which again we'll get into that. That's another character associated there. So Black Knight, I mean, in the very least, the sword has, like we've said, it has a curse, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it's like a bloodlust. So if you use the sword and you spill blood with it, it just makes you want to do it more, and it has like you're just like going crazy. I think it's kind of like Athena in Eternals, where she just kind of goes crazy and tries to fight everyone. There's another, I think it's called Warrior's Madness in the comics, where Thor has that sort of thing, where you just want to fight everyone and kick everyone's ass,
right.
Sort of thing, and it just takes over. So I think the Ebony Blade is similar in that regard. I'm not 100% sure on that, But the last thing you want is Black Knight using a sword on civilians or just regular criminals. What if you use it against vampires? You got to kill those, right? And they have blood, and zombies, technically, right? Like, it would be fine if he did it in that way. And again, this is still PG-13 Marvel Disney stuff, so he's not going to be killing people at mass, and Blade is not going to be sucking bloods out of people's necks and stuff like that. They have to make it a way that makes sense, where they can use their abilities and still be tied to this blood stuff, but it not be killing a bunch of people. So if it were zombies or vampires, that's okay, right? So yeah.
It'll be, like I said, I think obviously the connection is there. Like they do cross. I mean, technically everyone crosses paths in the Marvel universe, so it's not like we can really say like, oh, there's a connection there, because every character connects somehow one way or another. But yeah, I think there's some makes sense, because like I said, just the fact that they were on that team together, there could be something where they're related, and they'll probably be in something together. Obviously, I don't think, like, especially who the actors are. Like, I don't think we're gonna, like, Dane Whitman played by I forget his name.
Kit Harington.
Kit Harington. It's tip of my tongue. Kit Harington's a pretty big actor, as far as like a well-known actor with Game of Thrones, and I doubt he's going to be just introduced here and then we won't hear from him for another, 3 years or something like that. So he's probably going to be back in one of these shows or appear in something or another. Same, like I said, with Blade too. I just don't. I can't. It's hard for me to envision them them teasing Blade and then not having him appear in something else. But let's move on to our final part. Disney announced a bunch of shows for their Disney Plus streaming service, and I think there was other shows later announced too that I may have missed. One or two that I know these were like on Disney Plus Day. These were announced, but I can't remember. Did you? I don't know if it was like somebody a fan made, but did they announce Daredevil?
No.
Okay, maybe it was fan made then. Somebody, just a fan, tried to like fake people out, I guess. So maybe they didn't. Because I'm.
Remember, like we talked about, they're possibly throwing Daredevil in the Echo series, like having Kingpin and Daredevil show up there, but nothing officially announced because they haven't like announced Charlie Cox or anybody coming back. But
right. Well, we'll see if Charlie Cox appears in Spider-Man.
That too. Yep.
No, we'll see if obviously they're hush hush. We'll see if it actually happens. But yeah, let's get into these shows. I think for the most part, we just want to talk about like which three in our like that we're looking forward to the most of all of these. So I'll let you start with your three and why you are excited about them.
Well, for me, it's really just one and then two other ones because you asked for three.
Okay, fair enough.
I am legitimately only excited for X-Men 97. Like, it's not that these other shows aren't good or interesting or anything. I'm just the number one X-Men fan. I am a humongous X-Men fan, in particular the X-Men animated series from the 90s, and this is the revival of that. So this is supposed to be continuing the exact same story from that 90s animated series, and it will just keep going. So that is incredibly exciting. I was crying when I saw this as I was driving. I was super happy about being able to like I just watched it again like a few months ago. Like I own this digitally. I illegally downloaded. I will admit that like years ago. I have it on my hard drive back here, and then I have the DVDs, so that way I can legitimately say I actually own it. I have them sitting down here. I have the DVDs, and then I watched it on Disney Plus, and I'm just a humongous X-Men fan. They're by far the most meaningful comic book series to me, and one of the most meaningful pop culture things to me personally. And it's all started with that animated series. Even to this day, it's incredibly relevant. Like, you can watch the first episode and be like, wow, like within 5 minutes, like watch 5 minutes of the first episode that came out in 92 or 93, and you're like, yeah, that's still happening today. That's exactly like to a T all the things that they're doing in that show is happening in real life to this day, and it's just incredible. Like, I absolutely am excited. They have the original showrunners are coming back as consultants for the show. They
Right.
have a lot of the voice cast for the original show is coming back. Like, Rogue is coming back, Wolverine is coming back to voice the character. I believe I saw Gambit, the voice actor for Gambit's going to be coming back. Unfortunately, the voice actor for Cyclops passed away last year, so
Yeah.
he won't be coming back. So there will be new voice actors as well, like Jennifer Hale. If you don't know anything about her, she is one of those voice actresses that pretty much voice everything. Like, if there's any your favorite cartoons or video games or like something like that, she's probably worked on it. So she's going to be in there, I believe. I think it said Ray Chase, another name, going to be in there. So we just don't know what characters they're going to be voicing. There's a lot of artists that I follow, that I've been following for years, that are actually working on the show. So I'm like, okay, it's in good hands because I trust their artwork. I trust their judgment. They are big fans. I know that their art style, and I like this. It feels like it's actually a really good revival for the show. Now, as far as anything else goes, I am pretty.
You don't have to.
yeah.
You don't have to tell the others.
No, I'll quickly mention. I'll quickly mention, because I did say when we were talking about What If in our previous podcast that my
Right.
favorite episode was the Marvel Zombies episode. So them actually and fully embracing it and giving it a whole show, I'm pretty happy about that. So I will see lots of zombie brains everywhere, and then we get to see zombie forms of all of our favorite characters, which is always the exciting thing. And then I have to say She-Hulk, a little bit more than Moon Knight, but just like a hair, just because I really like She-Hulk a little bit personally. And I hope, I can't wait to see what she fully looks like, because we only get to see a little bit of a tease of just like her legs and her arms and stuff. I hope she's really big, and I hope that the show is really funny. Other than that, Moon Knight is just like, it's just right there. I think it has a lot of potential. But for me, She-Hulk is way more my speed.
Right. So I 100% agree with you about X-Men. I'm really geeked out about that, because they were teasing that when they first started Disney Plus. They were teasing that they were going to revive X-Men, not reboot, but revive it. So I was like, wow, they're gonna revive one of my like childhood, my adulthood, all-time favorite shows. Like, I still watch this. I still binge watch this every few months. I binge watch the entire series. So I'm very excited about that. And just the same way with you, that's what got me into X-Men as well. Like, obviously, I tell you a story about, going to the library and checking out comic books. But that was a gateway for me to get into X-Men. So I'm very excited about that. I'm interested to see how they. I'm wondering, because like I remember the final episode is basically Charles Xavier going to a different universe or a world, because he can't, he's dying, and the only way to save him is through to Shi'ar technology.
Yeah,
Shi'ar is
Lalandra comes and scoops him up.
And Shi'ar haven't been introduced. I don't think they've been introduced to MCU yet, but Shi'ar basically is another race of beings. So like kind of they introduced the Kree and the God, what is that? What's the Marvel?
The Kree. That's the Kree.
No, Kree. No, but then
the Skrulls.
Scrolls.
and
I'm tipping my
Shatari.
tongue.
Yeah. Mhm.
So they've introduced those, and then, like I said, Shi'ar is another empire, and beings that obviously have immense powers and things like that. But so it'll be interesting if they're going to. I wonder if they're going to start off from there, or they're going to pretend like some of those episodes didn't happen.
Right. That's what I'm wondering, because I think a lot of people wondering, because season 5 started off really good. Actually, I think
Yeah.
they had the Phalanx episodes at the beginning of season 5, and I love those episodes. But then like a few episodes after that is when they actually changed the development
Right.
team. Even the intro is different, the art
Right.
style, all of that stuff, and so did the quality of the episodes go
Right.
downward. And it would be interesting if they just kind of just forget all of that happened and just go from like the Phalanx going forward. But I think one of the most interesting things about this is that if you look at the logo, it says Marvel Studios X-Men 97.
Right.
Everything that is made by Marvel Studios is MCU canon. So that means this is MCU at least I take it that way. It's hard to say that this is going to be a separate universe where all the, it's just animated. It doesn't, if What If counts as MCU canon, right? And that's animated. Why wouldn't this? And it's made by the Marvel Studios. Plus, does that mean that the prior seasons are also MCU canon, because this is a continuation of that as well, which would be, I think, the most interesting part, if that we've actually been watching technically the MCU since we were kids, if they pick up the whole series as canon for X-Men and the mutants within the MCU. I don't know how that would work, but that would be really, really cool if all of those episodes actually happened within the MCU and they are official. I hope it's canon too. This isn't me. Like it would be so cool. As long as they don't count the end of season 5, that just don't do that, please, because it's bad. But yeah, that would be super, super dope. And then going forward, in the very least, like if they don't regard like the previous episodes and it's just this series going forward, hey, we got mutants now, and eventually we'll get our Wolverine and get our live action Jean Greys and our and another thing too before we move on is that the original showrunners and all the voice cast, but particularly the showrunners, when they're at cons and stuff, they always get asked, and I would love to ask them the same question, but they answer it like all the time. If you could go back and add more characters, who would you add? Like everyone asks them this question. And they typically answer it the same way, is that they actually never really read the comic books. So they don't really know a whole lot of different X-Men characters enough to just keep adding them. And that's why we got like that core group, and they just kept that same group with Beast and so on. And some teasers here and there, Psylocke, Angel, etc. But they didn't keep adding to the team. We now have 30 years of extra comic books, but also 30 years of fans of that show that have been reading comic books and writing, drawing art and stuff. So they are now at the position where they can add them themselves. So if there's people within that creative group that's been huge X-Men fans this whole time and said, we need Emma Frost on that team, we need Psylocke on that team, it's about time that Angel actually, and Iceman, who appeared in one episode, actually be a part of the team and come back. Let's get Polaris there. Let's actually make Nightcrawler an official member. Let's get Colossus out of Russia and put him on the team. And they can totally still, because one thing about the X-Men is that, or the X-Men show, is that they did have a smaller team so they could focus and have like a rogue episode or an episode where it's just Storm and Wolverine, or just a Cyclops and Jean episode, and they made it really good for small character focuses. So I don't think they're going to make this roster like gigantic, but it does give them the opportunity to say, just like kind of the Avengers, where okay, these characters are going to take a break. They're not going to be on the team for this season. Here's a new set of characters that they were again. Here's Psylocke, here's Colossus, here's Nightcrawler, and let's focus on them. Let's not focus on Rogue and Gambit. They're off on honeymooning somewhere. They're vacationing. Oh, she got depowered. Whatever. And now we have new characters that are in this universe that are within the animated series and can interact with Wolverine still and get around to Apocalypse. I hope Apocalypse comes back. I need to see that guy again. Stuff like that. Like that's really that's the most exciting thing to me, is that they could add more characters and then that it could be a part of the MCU.
Right. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that show. And then obviously Spider-Man. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so I'm excited about them doing year one. It'll be interesting to see how many. Like, I'm guessing that they're only gonna do one season because it's year one. Like, are they gonna like milk year one into like 3-4 seasons? It'll be interesting how they go about that, because it's gonna be gonna be separate, obviously, from I think MCU. Like, it obviously is it's gonna introduce some of the things, but I'll say this, like, when he first becomes Spider-Man, obviously I wonder if they're gonna show some of like the old original villains that he faced, like I remember Montana, Fancy Dan, the Enforcers.
Yeah, the
Like, that'd be
Enforcers,
cool. Yeah, like he had a lot of battle with those guys. There was also smaller, like, I can't remember on top of my head. There's so many like little characters that he faced that weren't major villains, but he came across them. So I think it'll be fun if they can do that, because those like villains and things that he faced. I wonder eventually if when they bring the Fantastic Four in, if he'll have, because originally when Spider-Man first started, because obviously he was like a 14, 15-year-old kid, and he would always get into like little one-upmanships with Human Torch. So I wonder if they'll eventually bring the Human Torch into the animated series. That would be interesting. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they'll do with that. And then lastly, I myself, I'm excited about a couple of these different shows. Like She-Hulk, I'm definitely excited about. I'm excited about the Agatha Harkness, because I'm interested to see how further they go with that, especially connection with the Fantastic Four, and obviously further going into Wanda and her powers, when considering she more likely will be come out as a mutant. But I'm excited about Moon Knight, and the reason I'm excited about Moon Knight is because we were talking about Blade. And the rumor that Blade will make, I think the rumor is that Blade will make his first appearance in Moon Knight, the show. Also, the rumor is like Ethan Hawke is supposed to be in Moon Knight, and the rumor is he's going to be playing Dracula. So that right there, the connection, Blade, one of his nemesis is Dracula. So, yeah, I think I'm excited about that, especially, like I said, if Blade is going to be in Moon Knight. I don't know how much he's going to be in there, maybe like an appearance. But yeah, that show should be interesting. I know a lot of people don't know a lot about Moon Knight. I don't know in depth about Moon Knight. I know he's like one of the, like I said, the dark characters of Marvel Universe. So yeah,
he has a lot of people compare him to Batman, and I think that's kind
of. He's a detective.
It's fair enough on the surface, but he's way more complex than Batman. He does have a lot of money, but it's really more of one. He actually has abilities. Batman does not have abilities. He gets his abilities from the moon god Khonshu, and I mean, that's putting it a little loosely, but for what it's worth, he also has like a multiple personality disorder where he actually, I mean, there's Mark Spector is, well, whether or not Mark Spector is the actual person is debatable. And then there's I forget the names of the other ones, but there's like 3 main personalities, and then there's still Moon Knight, and there's like another actual personality that's like a newer one. But like one's like a taxi cab driver, and another one is like a really rich billionaire, and then one's just like an average guy, I guess the detective perhaps. And then there's Moon Knight. So he is aware of his abilities and he tries to use them for good and save people, but he's also very violent and on the anti-hero side of things. And yeah, like he struggles with these personalities, and he doesn't really like if one personality is like going through something. Like he has like children with a woman, like he's married with one of these personalities, and then he might switch over in the middle of hanging out with his kids and to a different personality. He's like, who are you? I don't know. Like he doesn't,
Right.
they're not his kids because that personality didn't have those children. It's like it's that
Right.
strong for him. So that's going to be super awesome to see that on film, on TV. I'm
Right.
like
Right.
very interested in that.
Right. So yeah, those are my 3. But like yeah, I know a lot of people will have like strong feelings about MCU and comic book movies and they don't like them. But those of us like you and me who are like always geeked out about these, I'm excited. Like I'm excited
Yeah.
about all these characters being on screen and us hearing about the stories of these characters and seeing uh what what flavor they'll add to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's going to be exciting in my opinion. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Any final thoughts that you might have?
What was I gonna say? Just like real quick, just to go back to the Eternals. Just something I wanted to mention. I thought it was really fun because Chloe, the director, said that when she was shooting Icarus scenes, that like we already talked about it, he's like associated like with the mythological Icarus flying too close to the sun,
Right.
and they threw in that shot, and also there's another shot of him flying out like towards, I believe it was towards Fastos, but he's like the sun is directly behind him, so it's kind of like teasing that. And but one of the things she did deliberately is that since his powers, I mean, they already talked about it, you're like Superman and all like stuff. She deliberately shot Icarus in a way that, because he has Superman like abilities, to mirror that of Man of Steel, Henry Cavill Superman, the way he flew, the way they shot him flying around, the way the eye
Right.
beams, like just the direction, the angles of the camera, the way his eye beams actually worked, the way he punched all of the deviants and stuff. Which, by the way, I believe the deviants. I meant to also say this. I hated them. I thought they were terrible. I thought Crow, I believe his name, was a terrible villain. Like, it was just kind of pointless. But yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think they were kind of like just there. They weren't really like they were kind of more of a nuisance than the villains. The main villain obviously was kind of Icarus in a sense because he
yeah.
was trying to
Icarus and Team.
the emergence and that the arm. They were the villains. I think yeah. So it's funny. I'm not to wrap up it like in the comics, Thanos is a mixture of Eternal and Deviant. That's why he's purple. And that's why like he doesn't look like Eros. So, and that's why he's kind of evil as well because he has a little deviant in him. But anyways, yeah. So that's a wrap for today's show. Obviously, please give us a follow. You can follow me at Science Flixtion. You've seen us on the screen, and then obviously follow Carl at Ninja Chortle. Please listen and tune into all different shows that we do have on the Barroom Network. I know there's some really big show coming on tomorrow for the Crosstown Crosstalk with Gavin Sheets. I know Joe and he's and them. They're gonna have a great episode there that they really got to have a fun conversation with them. So check that out tomorrow. And then obviously there's also various Bulls podcasts. Not to push my own show, but Bulls Gold, and then obviously Bulls 101. You got obviously various different Bears talks with Dan, Aldo, and all the different conversations that they have. So check all that stuff out. And yeah, thanks for obviously tuning in, and we will see you next time.
All right, peace out, guys.